talking about the worst books I read in 2021. I actually had a pretty good reading year last year, so there's not too many books on this list, which is surprising because I felt like there were going to be a lot more. I've only got 6 books to talk about today, but let's just get into it. Okay, first book I have, McGlue by Tessa Moshfegh. I was really excited going into this one because I've been dying to read My Year of Rest and Relaxation. This is not the same book, but it's the same author. The issue I was presented with is that My Year of Rest and Relaxation follows a girl in like the contemporary era living in New York who's really depressed and decides to sleep for a year. This book follows a man living in 1851 who is an extreme alcoholic who has a very disgusting personality and just general presence as a character. So completely different vibes. I was just trying to get a sense of Moshfegh's writing, and I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with the writing in this novel. I just didn't like it. I didn't enjoy the plot. I wasn't interested in it. To give a brief synopsis, it essentially follows this man named McGlue who wakes up with a brain injury and is told that he killed his best friend. This whole short novella, he's convinced that he didn't actually kill his best friend, even though everyone's telling him that he did. So, just not interested in the plot. And then I also didn't like the characters. I'm okay with either one of those things, but the other one has to give. If the plot isn't that exciting, I need to like the characters. If I don't like the characters, I need to be invested in the plot. Neither applied here. I don't really understand the ratings around this book on Goodreads. It seems like everyone other than me really loved it. I just couldn't get into it. I am still hoping to like Moshfegh's other work though, because when I really evaluate this, I wasn't interested in the material going in, which is on me. Still don't think it's that good of a book, but still. Next, I want to talk about The Overstory by Richard Powers. This one was also very upsetting to me. The family that I babysit for had given me this book because both of the parents said that it was their favorite novel, so I was really excited going into it, and then I was very disappointed. The first third of this book, it seems more like a short story collection. Each new chapter follows a different person and their life and their connection to trees in some way. I kind of liked it during the first portion because I thought it was just going to be a short story collection, but then sort of randomly all these characters start to join each other and they partake in like activism against environmental devastation. So, just to protect trees really is the whole thing, their whole political standpoint, which is like a good standpoint. And I feel like even on the basis of that, I should like it. Like, I love political activism, I care about the environment, I'm interested in reading about that, and I'm interested in reading about trees. And I will say that it was well written, but I think it was hard for me to get over the initial jump between like, I thought it was a short story collection, then I was starting to like it, versus now all of a sudden it's like a novel. Also is partially on me, but at the same time, I feel like it could have been integrated better. And then once we got to the novel part, I was just not interested in it at all. I think the way that he introduced the characters in the beginning made me less invested in them than you would be typically at that point in a novel. I didn't really care about any of the characters. The plot was like whatever. I don't get it. I've seen other people talk about this book too, and they've also said very positive things about it. I don't understand. And now I'm keeping my copy of the book forever because the people that I babysat for like wrote a whole little thing on the front cover, which was very sweet, but I don't like the book, which is even more frustrating. After that, we've got Going Bovine by Libba Bray. I haven't actually talked about this one in depth yet because it was the last book that I read in 2021, and oh my god, was this a terrible book to choose. I was determined to finish it in 2021 so that I wouldn't have to continue it going forward. I didn't want to bring that with me into the new year. This book, I don't even know how to describe it. It follows a 16-year-old boy who is diagnosed with like mad cow disease and is told he's going to die. And at the same time that this is happening, he's seeing things like fairies and like other stuff happen. He's told that he has to save the world, and he goes on this huge, like, very weird random mission, and you're kind of like left not understanding what was real. There's also a lot of references in here to Don Quixote. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I've never pronounced it out loud. Don't come at me. I've never read that, so maybe I could be missing a lot, because I feel like this is a modern take on that, potentially. But Jesus fucking Christ, it was awful. I think my initial issue with this is that my older sister, had this for years, and when I was younger, I wanted to read it, and she told me that it was like a grown-up book, so I couldn't. So going into it, I thought that this was an adult novel. It was not. My sister told that to me because when I was asking her to read it, I was like 11, and this book follows from the perspective of a 16-year-old boy, and he's constantly making jokes about like masturbation, he's smoking weed, talking about sex, stuff like that. So that was a bit of a letdown, because I don't think I would have still been interested in it had I not thought it was an adult novel. It was quite a rude awakening. More so though, I think this book really suffers from the fact that it's painfully outdated in its humor. When was it written? 2009. So if you think about the type of humor that was popular in 2009, we've got like really random, like quirky shit, which this book is full of. Like, it's just like a fever dream, random adventure. Everything that happens is just like weird and out of place because it's trying really hard to be random. But then you also have to think about what teenage boys were like in 2009. Like, that was the height of my entire personality, and all the jokes that I make and my entire sense of humor is just based off of being really offensive. It definitely shines through in here. I'm not gonna say that this is like the most offensive, like problematic book ever, but one of the main characters is a dwarf and it's constantly made fun of. They use the R word in here multiple times. I'm sure there's other examples that I didn't take time to actually like catalog in my brain. Just sit with yourself and think for a second about what a 16-year-old boy would have found funny in 2009. Because this book is written for 16-year-old boys in 2009. I never want to revisit that era of humor, or just, I guess, teen boy humor in general, at all. Painful to sit through. This honestly might be the worst of the bunch here. Next is a book that I've talked about quite a lot. That is Deerskin by Robin McKinley. If you're not aware, I talked about this in a video I made where I read good read recommendations based off of my favorite books. This book is so bad. Essentially, it follows this like princess whose mother dies, and then like after her mother dies, her father starts getting interested in her and tries to marry her, and then she runs away, and the whole time she has like a dog as a companion, and half the book is just like the author talking about the dog when it's not necessary at all, which I couldn't stand. On top of that, I thought the writing was really terrible. It was all tell, no show. None of the characters had personalities. The main character's only personality was loving her dog and loving dogs in general. It was also really naive in some aspects. Like, the main character was a princess, but no one in the kingdom took interest in her, even though her parents were the most beloved in the entire kingdom. And also the idea that everyone in the kingdom is absolutely in love with their king and queen is like disgustingly naive and stupid and cringy. I'm gonna keep this short because I ranted about this in that video for like 20 minutes. So if you're interested in hearing more about what I hate about this book, check out that video, but I can't see any redeeming qualities about this book. Next, I want to talk about The Queen's Rising by Rebecca Ross. This book, really its main issue is that it's just like really stereotypical YA fantasy. I don't remember much about what it was about. I know it took place in some school where like there were only girls and they could all master a certain like skill, and there was one girl who was put in there because she was like an orphan or something, and she can't master any of the skills, and then oh my god, there's actually a missing princess and you can put it together fairly fucking easy. It was just completely unoriginal. The writing was also very stereotypical YA fantasy and not in a good way. Very boring. Had higher hopes for it. And then the very last book on this list is Rose Madder by Stephen King. I saved this book for last because even though I did also really dislike Going Bovine and Deerskin, this book actually put me into like a month-long reading slump, so it has a special place of honor here. This book follows a woman named Rose who at the beginning of the novel escapes an abusive relationship. She escapes to try to find a new life, and then with time her abusive husband like comes after her. But then at the same time, there's this weird other plot line about like a painting that she bought in a thrift store that is like coming to life, and it's like a lot of Stephen King's fantastical elements are really out there and not easily understandable, but for this one it was just like, what is this? Like, I said this for Going Bovine, but that part of this book genuinely felt like a fever dream, and I still don't get it. Even outside of that, the book was really boring. And it suffers from like a very common Stephen King flaw, I guess, where in a lot of his older novels in particular, as a way of making like the bad guy seem more bad, I guess, Stephen King, a white man, makes his like white male bad guy use a lot of like racial slurs and also homophobic slurs. I hated all of that. First of all, we already know he's bad. He beats his wife. The first chapter, he like severely wounds her. We don't need him saying the N-word. We don't need a white author making his white character say the N-word to establish that he's bad, especially when race doesn't play a role in the book at all. I hated this. I could not stand this. Most of Stephen King's novels you can trust to just be like a fun, easygoing time, but every now and then you get a terrible one, and then you never want to read Stephen King again. And in this case, this book made me not want to read for a while at all, and it was awful to get through. Okay guys, there you have it. Those were the worst books of 2021 that I read personally. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Goodbye!